Hello friends, Namaste. This is another video on research methodology for beginners part 4. I would request you all to please view my other videos part 1 to 3 to understand the various nitty-gritties of research methodology well so that you can relate what I'm trying to explain in this video. The title of part 4 is Research Design. Now, guys, as we have already discussed what is research, what are the process of research, how to define your formulate your title, your objectives, the next step comes is creating the blueprint for your research activities. Blueprint is your research design. Blueprint, as you can understand, it's a structural framework which helps you to let yourself and your audiences whom you will be presenting your research work to understand better what you will be doing in your research or what you have done for your research. So now, as I was saying, it's a blueprint, it's a structural design. It has various components which has to be taken care very well, meticulously, so that it gives you a pathway to execute your research in a streamlined format and to get your results properly. Now, if you see in this slide, I'm trying to say that research design should be clear and focused. So, when you have done your research questions, your research objectives, you need to understand that your uh, objectives, which are measurable, which are doable, which are achievable, should be having methodology where you will accomplish all your research objectives. So, research design is always relevant to your objectives. So, which I will be showing in the next slides how to go about with your research methodology related to your objectives with a sample. So, let's run through the next part of a research design. This is to start with, I'm giving you a sample so that you can understand the elements of research design, and whatever I will be explaining in my next slides, you will be able to relate with. So if you see a research design, again I'm repeating the two words that is blueprint or the structural framework. Here if you see, the first part is you need to understand what type of study you are doing. Type of study means whether you are doing exploratory, experimental, descriptive. That is your research approach. What type of approach you have in your study, which I will explain to you in detail. Exploratory means that you are not aware what you are looking for, what you need to do. You just explore and come up with some kind of results through secondary data. Okay, so here the primary data is not required in exploratory type of research. Whereas in experimental and descriptive study, you need primary investigation. So experimental type of study is where you experiment some data by observing it on, either it can be on human or it can be on product or it can be on whatever samples you have in your study. Okay, descriptive is combination of primary and your secondary data, but here the process, the research methodology involved is through research tools like questionnaire, qualitative study. So here the basically the observation part is not that much, whereas in experimental it is your manual intervention of your observation parts. So coming back to this research design elements, if you see, very important thing is, first is you need to know what type of study you are doing. Second is you need to know your sampling design, which I will explain in the next slides. Sample as such is the population on which you will be doing your study. Okay, so a very easy example which my professor used to give to me is when you go for your blood test, the doctor asks you to give a sample of your blood so that they will do some test on it. Same way, whatever you're planning in your research, on whom you will be doing the study, whether it's on human being, whether it's on animal, whether it's on um, any kind of variables, say abstract variables, those things you need to define in your study, and how you will be collecting your data, it will be through your sampling design. Okay, so the respondents, the participants in your study becomes your sample. Statistical design, as I gave the example of blood test, when you give your sample to the medical officials, okay, the lab pathologists, what they do is they use some type of test to identify what are the diseases, or maybe say for blood group if you're looking, so they have the various tests to identify your blood group. Same way in research, you need to use some statistical tests to show the relationship of the variables which you have identified in your study. So again, variables, statistical methods, all these things will be explained to you in detail in the next upcoming videos. But here, just for your understanding, you need to know that in a research design, you should have your sampling design, you should know the statistical design, you should tell your guide, your readers, what type of tools which you will be using in your study, whether you are using a questionnaire, whether you are using a checklist, whether you are doing a case study. So that observational design, all those things has to be mentioned in your research design. And operational design, if you see, if the study is flexibility in nature, it is more of exploratory type of study. Means you have not made your samples, you are not doing any kind of primary investigations, it becomes very flexible. But if it is experimental exploratory method, then what sorry, descriptive method, it becomes more of rigid design. So let's explore all these elements in detail. As I said, what type of study, what type of approach you will use. So I have explained to you the broader types, that is exploratory, descriptive, and experimental. So keeping aside the exploratory, which is more on secondary database, you don't need to do any primary data collection there. But when you talk about your descriptive and experimental, you have to use these qualitative or quantitative approach. Okay, and if you're using both, it becomes a mixed method study. So let's quickly understand what is qualitative. Qualitative is, it's more on describing your respondents info in detail, okay, and it is mostly based on interviews and observation methods. So it's more of abstractive data, it's more of observational data-based type of study, and it is on very complex type of topics, say like psychological based study, or it can be more of deep investigative study, where you need to come up with some reasonings of why people like or do not like a particular product. Okay, and in quantitative, it is more of in number type. So it's more using of numerical data, which is done through surveys and experiments. Surveys and experiments, like you have a questionnaire and you go and make your respondents to fill those questionnaires. So if you remember my previous PPTs which I was showing, I had said that say use of AI in hospitality and tourism. So how artificial intelligence is introduced or intervening in the lives of hospitality and tourism industry or people. So if you want to know data like how much it is utilized, to what extent it is going into the utility, you can go with some feedback, some surveys, and make them do some kind of rating. But if you want to know how it is impacting onto the lives of the hospitality and tourism professionals, you need to do a qualitative study. So what you need to do is make people come together, discuss with them through some questions which gives the open-ended answers. Okay, like say you will give a very generalized question, how, to what extent AI is impacting you. Okay, and the respondents are let free to describe according to their ways, in whatever format they want to describe the impact of AI. Whereas in quantitative, you will have a form where you will make them to fill up the form, like rate the level of AI impacting onto your life. So rating, Likert scale rating of 1 to 10 or 1 to 9, hedonic scale, or 1 to 5. You will decide based on what type of responses you are looking for. And all these things has to be done by consulting your guide, and then whatever approach you are using and whatever instruments means through which you will be collecting your data, you need to get a validity of it by doing some content validity, which I again will be explaining in the future videos. So the next method is mixed method. Mixed method approach is where you use both the methods, like the qualitative and quantitative. Say for example, you have done a very huge survey. Okay, and guys, please remember, if it is a huge survey, better go for a quantitative. Okay, huge means where your sample size is too high. Okay, more than 30, 50, 100, go for quantitative survey. If you are looking for only with a very small sample size, go for qualitative. So if you're doing a mixed method, like say for example, you have done a mass data collection about impact of AI through all this Likert based question, but you want to know that psychologically how much it is impacting onto people. So what you can do is go for a qualitative study, do some interviews with some 30 selected people. As I said, the sample size for qualitative will be less. Okay, so in qualitative the minimum is 10 and maximum is 30 you can take, and do some kind of studies on them, the respondents. And with this mixed method study, you are using both the methods and then you come to some conclusion. Now, as the next element of your research design is sampling, you need to understand on whom you will be doing your survey. Okay, from whom you will be collecting the data. So whether it is a qualitative, quantitative study, you need to know your population. So if you see here in this diagram, population is the entire people, okay, which is available in the universe, whereas sample is which you select based on your requirements. So again, giving the example of testing for blood group, your whole body has liters of blood, but when you go for blood group test, they will ask you for some ml of blood to do the sampling to find out the group. Now, here when you are doing your sampling, you need to understand based on your study who will be the population. Say, for example, again, I repeat my example of AI impacting the hospitality industry and tourism industry professionals. So, here professionals I've used. So, the population will be people who are working in hospitality and tourism industry, like those who are working in entertainment, in hotels, those who are working in travel agencies, those who are working with event companies. Then what I need to do is I have to define are how much is this population, and then I have to do one very meticulous selection of these people and come up with a sample size, that how many people I will be doing from the vast universe available population. So if you have, say for example, you are restricting your study to some region. I'll give example of uh, say for example Karnataka. So in Karnataka, you should know what is the total population. From the total population, how many people are there in hospitality and tourism. Then say if we give example, 1 lakh people working in hospitality and tourism in Karnataka, you have to use some uh, formulas to come up with your sample size. So there are various formulas which can be applied to come to a sample size based on what sampling techniques you are using. So these things will be explained again in detail in the next videos. But for sampling techniques, I will quickly let you know about there are two techniques, probability and non-probability. So when we talk about in sampling techniques, probability means where you are sure of your whole population to be covered in your study. Okay. Whereas in non-probability, you're unsure whether you will be covering the whole population in your study. So mostly the expected norms, or if you're going for good publications of your research, you should always go for probability sampling. And if you are doing some kind of qualitative study, you have a very less time and you feel non-probability sampling will give you the good results, you can go for non-probability sampling. So again I repeat, probability sampling where you have assurance of covering the whole population, non-probability where the researcher is unsure whether they will be covering the whole population or not in the study. So probability sampling, if you see, there are three methods in that: simple random sampling, stratified sampling, and cluster sampling. Now, simple random sampling, please don't go by the word random. Here, simple random sampling means that there will be a formula used, and based on the formula, you will be selecting your sample size. So, again, I'll give the example of say 1 lakh people working in hospitality and tourism industry in Karnataka. You can go for a Cochrane formula. Okay, Cochrane formula has some, which is nowadays you have softwares available. You just need to add the population and click on Cochrane formula. Cochrane formula will do the calculation and will give you the result that this is the minimum requirement of sample you should have. So again, I'll give you the generalized idea that if your population is more than 1,000 or lakh, you need to have some 383 as your minimum sample size for the study. Okay, so in Cochrane formula, generally the minimum sample size comes as 383. So this is a formula based. Now stratified sampling means you go by some strata and select the people. So say for example, the same example I'll keep repeating, tourism and hospitality professional, you'll go with the strata of the professionals who are in the top level, okay, who are decision makers, who are managers, and you select only these people in your study. Or you can take it like the frontline staff who are working, and you from every segment you will be selecting the frontline staff, the workers. Cluster sampling, by the word itself, it is geographically in some locations you will be selecting those samples in your study. So as I said, Karnataka, you can do it like rural areas of Karnataka or maybe urban areas of Karnataka, and then select people accordingly. Non-probability sampling. Now, when we talk about non-probability sampling, as I said, it is mostly where you're unsure you'll be covering the whole population or not. You go in a very, what to say, based on your convenience. Okay. And like here, the word convenience is used is I know somebody, I will refer to that person, and then you will go and collect data from them. So that becomes convenience sampling. Okay, so based on your convenience, if you are residing in North Karnataka, you want to take data only from North Karnataka, you make it as convenience based sampling. Purposive sampling, where you have some purpose behind selecting these population in your study. Say, so as I said, you say that I will go and meet only general managers who are the decision makers. So you are going with some purpose of sampling methodology. And then quota sampling. Quota is based on some kind of characteristics you define, that who will be your sample in your study, and you go and collect data from them. Selecting the research methods, here is the when we talk about what type of methods you will be using in your research approaches. So if it is quantitative study, always go for a larger survey method. Okay, and if it is qualitative study, go for interview method where you seek the responses one on one in a very descriptive format. Surveys are based on close-ended format. The questions are very close-ended with the responses available, and it is mostly on Likert scale. Likert scale is like rating it 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 or 1 to 7 or 1 to 9. It's mostly in the, you'll find odd digits you'll get in the scale format. Experiment, if you are doing some kind of scientific investigation, if you are doing some kind of product formulation, go in for experiments where you record the data, maybe like say temperature or the people's like, dislike, then you can go for experiments. Case study methods, yes, if you're going for any company based type of studies, any organization specific study, you can select case study method as your in your research methodology. Now when you are developing these tools, that is for quantitative and qualitative study, questionnaires are used for surveys. Okay, so again I repeat, questionnaires will have set of questions with Likert scale, close-ended questions with rating 1 to 10 or whatever ratings you are looking for. Interviews, which is for qualitative study, you will have checklists. Checklist means that will give you a structure, what are the questions you need to ask, and basically those questions will be very limited, and it will be open-ended type of questions where you allow your respondents to answer according to their choice. And observation protocols are for experiments where you note down those protocols, say like the temperature, or if you're doing some product development, plus minus temperatures, or you are doing some kind of sentiment analysis, so positive negative sentiments. These are the protocols which you have to mention. This is a small sample of research design based on the objective. So once you define your objective, you need to mention what methodology for each objective will go. So I'll just quickly tell you. The first objective you mention is to study tourist destination in Kannur, which is a place in India, in Kerala. So here the method which goes well is descriptive and exploratory. Exploratory, you go and explore the place, and you go with the descriptive style by collecting primary data from the tourists or officials, whosoever is there in your study as a sample. Second is to study the various types of tourism circuit. So here the correlation and descriptive study will be there. Again, primary investigation will happen, and correlation analysis of your variables which is there in your study will be done. Last objective is to identify untapped tourism potential and of various destinations and create a circuit. So here qualitative and quantitative study method can go where the tourists and the officials can be approached to seek their view on what tourism circuit go well in that particular place. So this is just an example for you to understand well. I hope you like my video. If not, please give me your feedback. Let me know where I can improve. Please share your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you for watching. Bye bye. Take care.